Hi, welcome to Prairie Turnip Farm. We are Hank and Joanna Will. We live on 175 acres in rural Osage County, Kansas. We raise heritage and land-raised sheep, cattle and chickens, honeybees, and we also look after a number of donkeys, livestock guardian dogs, ducks, geese, guineas, barn cats, and one stray mule that found her way to the farm and decided to stay on. We maintain abundant habitat to sustain hardy populations of wild pollinators, birds, beneficial insects, reptiles, amphibians, and prairie mammals while raising food for ourselves and our community. Increasing biodiversity is a key aim on the farm, and we work to achieve this outcome at all levels and scales, from allowing pollinator-friendly weeds to grow with abandon in our lawn, to raising livestock in a manner that promotes diversity and resilience, to managing our prairie pastures and meadows for a broad diversity of native grasses and forbs that are supported by a vast array of microbial action below the ground. We are firm believers in the extraordinary gifts that come from the ability to grow one's own food, and we have dedicated ourselves both here on the farm and in our off-farm professional lives to making access to healthy, locally grown food a reality for as many people as possible. We are grateful and humbled to be able to provide healthy food raised without the use of chemicals or synthetic additives of any kind for ourselves and our family, our friends, and our community. Our primary livestock focus at Prairie Turnip Farm is our land-raised sheep. For about 13 years, we've been working on developing a land-raised hair sheep that will perform under our conditions and our management strategy. They're combinations of Dorper, Katahdin, Corsican, and Barbados blackbelly to create a breed that's genetically resistant to parasites and that can perform from start to finish on forage. Our animals receive no grain. They receive no antibiotics or other medical treatments in order to make it through the year, and it required some heavy selecting, actually some severe selecting at the beginning, but 12 years or 13 years down the road, and we've got a flock that performs really well under our conditions and our management strategy. The sheep do a couple of things for us. They obviously help with some weed control and all of that, but they also help us to manage the pasture land and the prairie land for greatest diversity. And we do that through our own version of rotational grazing, where the animals are on individual paddocks for a specific amount of time, and then they move on, and they won't revisit the paddock for maybe 20 to 30 days, or possibly longer depending on the season, so the paddock has a chance to recover. And one of the things that we've noticed is that we can actually modify, in a beneficial way, the distribution and the diversity of plants in the paddocks by the timing of the grazing episodes. Raising sheep on the Kansas prairie goes hand in hand with intense predator pressure in the form of coyotes. We have worked hard in recent years to decrease the high incidence of lamb and ewe loss to coyotes by adding livestock guardian dogs to our flock. Starting with one large male Great Pyrenees 4 years ago, we quickly fell in love with livestock guardian dogs and also realized that we would need more of them and a few fencing improvements if we were going to significantly cut our losses. We then added 2 Great Pyrenees Anatolian Shepherd mix females and bred them to Rupert, our large male dog, and spent last winter raising 16 livestock guardian puppies together with this year's crop of lambs. It was an exciting and interesting time watching the puppies develop with the sheep. 10 of the pups went to close family and friends, and we kept the other 6 to round out our sheep protection detail. We have suffered no loss to coyotes this year and have the added bonus of having a band of beautiful, intelligent dogs to enrich our lives and the farm. We also maintain a small herd of cattle here on the farm. It's in part because I like cattle, and it's in part because cattle will do different things in the pasture. They'll eat different things, and they'll help us to change the matrix in a different way than the sheep do. And so, I started out with years and years ago with black Angus cattle. I had a fairly large herd, which I sold. It was registered, and I got tired of all the details of keeping track of a registered herd. And here, because I thought they were cool, I brought a small group of Scottish Highland cattle in This is again probably 12 or 13 years ago when I first got here, and you know, they performed okay for us here. I think they can get a little bit of heat stress in the summertime, but not too bad. One of the things that's really good about them is that they also do browse, so they help a little bit with maintaining our wooded areas, and they'll do a little bit of, you know, broadleaf weed control, like they really do like poison ivy, for example. But you know, my last Highland bull, our last Highland bull passed away, and we replaced him instead of with another Highland, a Piney Woods bull, which is you know, a breed that's a lot more heat tolerant than the Scottish Highlanders are. And so we're just now getting our first crop of calves, and the calves look great. We'll be interested to see if they're still genetically lean and tender and finish out on grass just as well as the Scottish Highlanders do. So that's kind of where we're headed with that. The animals are there. Yeah, there's a little bit of cash that flows from raising them, but they're really here to help us maintain diversity and modify the pasture and the meadow matrix. You know, we also keep bees. Joanna's been a beekeeper for probably 20 years or so, maybe more. And she was trained and highly experienced in using the Langstroth model hives. And I've only dabbled in that over the years. We've bought lots of bee packages and lost lots of bee packages to various environmental factors or just absconding. It's kind of discouraging in a way. But we also noticed that we had tons of what I would call feral bees that, you know, pollinated our stuff, and you know, just sort of logged that in our brains. I'm a trained geneticist, and Joanne and I have always talked about how, you know, we would never bring sheep here from some place that's really far away and expect them to be adapted. So why would we do that with bees? So you know, fast forward a couple of years, I guess, and I happened to attend a presentation by Dr. Leo Sharashkin at the Kansas Rural Center annual conference. I think it was my first or second conference that I went to, and I was totally blown away by his presentation on how to keep bees, as he calls it, a more natural way, the natural way, if you will. He employs a hive that's very, very popular in Europe that's called a Layens hive. It is a horizontal hive. You don't stack supers on it or anything like that, but you can expand their length, or you can offer the bees more length if you need to. But they're fairly standard sized. They're easy to build yourself. And his whole model is based on building small versions of that, maybe a nuke-sized version, a 6-frame version, that you can place high up in a tree, and not any old tree, but like a sentinel tree along your hedgerow or what have you, and bait it with a little bit of lemongrass oil in a vial that leaks the oil just incredibly slowly, so you and I can barely smell it, or maybe can't smell it, but it's enough for the bees. And you know, you rub it the inside with propolis and put a little beeswax in there and what have you. And what happens in the spring during swarm season is scout bees will find these boxes in the trees, and in many cases they'll decide they look like a good place to bring the new swarm. And so we've had really good luck using that technology. I think the first year I put 7 traps up in the trees, and I know for sure 6 were occupied. We even had a couple of colonies over winter in those boxes because I never got them installed in, you know, their permanent hives. So we're really sold on that technology, and every winter now I try to build another 5 or so hives. And this spring we had the really sort of, I don't know, awesome experience, if you will, of having a feral swarm, not from our bees, but from bees down, you know, a mile away in the creek bed, that actually chose one of the hives that I built over the winter. I baited all of those also. And I happened to be sitting out there watching bees while the whole big giant swarm moved in. And you talk about a pretty compelling experience. That's more than got me hooked. And so we also manage several multi-acre patches to maximize wildflower production throughout the season, so that the bees have plenty of local forage to eat. And we also discovered this year that they can thrive on giant ragweed pollen. They collect it, and it's impossible, I think, to farm in this part of Kansas and not have a giant ragweed patch here or there. At any rate, so that's another big component of where we're headed and what we do. All of these projects tend to bring a little bit of cash in, sometimes more than a little bit of cash in, but our real passion is managing a diverse landscape. And we're not so focused on trying to approximate what this landscape was once, but rather just to build a landscape or promote a landscape that will harbor the largest number of plant and animal species that really need help in this day and age.
Another fun and important aspect of the farm and land management are our chickens, ducks, geese, and guineas. We raise and process our own meat chickens once or twice a year, and we have numerous flocks of laying hens, along with a handful of ducks and geese, which are made up of a diverse mix of heritage and a few new breeds that we selected for beautifully colored eggs, keen foraging abilities, and winter and summer hardiness. Our birds are truly free range. They come in only at night and only of their own accord. And while we greatly value the impacts this freedom has on our birds and the resulting foods they give us, raising free-range birds is not without its challenges. From hard-to-find egg caches, greater vulnerability to predators both day and night, unique nesting locations, to the occasional mishap with other farm animals, raising free-range poultry definitely keeps us on our toes. On the other hand, the nutritional wisdom that makes its way to the eggs and meat of the birds makes this endeavor worth it to us.